In today's review, we're going to be having a look at the new Beast Kingdom. This is the Justice League Dynamic Action Heroes Aquaman. This is the continued looks at the new Justice League Dynamic Action Heroes from the folks over at Beast Kingdom. Aquaman's pretty cool because he's going to come included with a alloy Trident, which has some nice beefy weight to it, as well as an interchangeable head, which we'll look at when we get further into the figure here. Oh, but the first thing that we do is figure out how tall this Atlantean is. So putting the tape measure next to Aquaman, he's just a little shorter than 8 inches in height. He's closer to being about 7 3/4. Like what I've been doing with the other figure releases, let's compare him to the previously looked at Dynamic Action Hero Justice League figures. There's the Flash, and what started this whole reviewing, the last series bit of reviewing, here he is next to the tactical suit Batman. Now, I always thought that Aquaman was taller than Ben Affleck, but according to this, he is a little bit shorter. Now, you could add to the fact that the tactical suit Batman does technically have the ears on his cowl, which may be making him a little bit taller, but they're roughly about the same height, give or take. A rather familiar sight, Aquaman comes with the very same display base as we've seen with all of the Beast Kingdom releases. The bases, I think, are actually even the same as the Egg Attack figures that we've looked at, other than those just being a clear base. Here we have Aquaman featured on the very front, and the Aquaman logo up at the top there. Same clear adjustable neck. There's nothing really different between this specific base and the base that we've already had a look at. In fact, there is the Flash. You can see that the two symbols right there. And reaching over here to the side of my reviewing location, here he is. Here's the display base for the tactical suit Batman. So again, they're all the exact same base, just the logos and of course the names will differ from base to base. I like that these are consistent to one another. I probably will put them in some regards to a dynamic pose as opposed to having them standing straight up in a museum pose. I do like the fact that when I put them on display, they're each going to have the same base. And again, just the alternating names, the different names featured on the front. While still talking about the display bases, this is pretty cool. The folks over at Beast Kingdom have included some sort of extra component pieces that you can go along with the Aquaman display base that we have right here. We're just going to move the figure over for a second, just a split second. He does come with these two waves, these two kind of tidal waves, in which you can really display with the figure. I mean, it would just involve, depending on where you want to place it, you can kind of just put it around the base like that. It's a very similar sort of fashion to what we got here with the Flash. Flash had that electricity that you could really display around the base. You really don't even necessarily need to display it around the base. You could also just put it around the figure. They have made use of a translucent, almost ice blue, and then added some dry brushing of the white around the edges there, just kind of give the froth and the top area of the waves splashing over. They are different from one another. They're not the same title or not the same waves, but again, it's a nice little added piece, a nice little way to kind of jazz up the existing display for Aquaman. So he gets those two. We're going to put those to the side, and of course, we'll take the display base. We'll also put that to the side. Let's move the figure back into the frame here. Now, he does also come with some other accessories. I'll kind of talk about that in a second. I just really want to spend a little bit of time, a much needed, deserving amount of time to focus our efforts looking at the figure itself. It's a beautiful figure. I don't know if I really should say beautiful to describe Aquaman, but from a plastic standpoint, this again really knocks it out of the park for what we're getting here with the figure release. The head sculpt, now he does come with two head sculpts. Don't worry, I'll talk about that in a second. The defaulted head sculpt, when you get it immediately out of packaging, is not a bad likeness to Jason Momoa, not a bad likeness to Aquaman. I don't feel like it 100% captures the likeness. Certain angles, yes, it certainly does capture some of that, but I don't think it's 100% an accurate head sculpt. The hair is rather dark too. Could have probably afforded a little bit of the lighter hair highlights in which he did have in the movie itself. Now, say if this isn't your cup of tea, they also include this head sculpt. Now, this is what I'm talking about. If I'm going to display Aquaman, as much as I like this head sculpt, I think this one is definitely bang on for looking like Jason Momoa and Aquaman. Really, really splendid head sculpt. In fact, get as much in as you can. For those who are good at taking mental photographs, take a good mental photograph of this head sculpt. And we're going to go ahead and take this off. You just want to grab the torso, pop it off very easily. There is actually a good way for me to also talk about a little bit of the posability. It's got double ball joints, so one right there and one right there. The neck adjusts as well as the top of the head adjusts. So you got double ball joint happening. Let's go ahead and add the new head sculpt. And this isn't actually in the packaging. Well, let me clarify that just in case somebody was like, what do you mean it's not in the packaging? It's not necessarily in the packaging tray that comes included with the figure. Instead, it's actually in the baggie that's underneath the tray. That's the same place in which you're going to also find the tidal waves, little wave effects, and you're also going to get the display base. They're all underneath that. It's sort of kind of like an extra little bonus, a reward, if you will, for picking up the figures themselves. All the figures have had that. Every figure from the Batman v Superman all the way up to the Justice League figures have all had that. Sort of, again, like a nice little reward for picking up the figures. Batman's had his grapple guns, for example. Interchangeable heads have also been in there as well, and Aquaman's no exception. Now, this is a great looking head sculpt. It is a little on the lighter side, though, however, versus the coloring of his neck. If we take also the original head sculpt, which I haven't done away with in its entirety, the head sculpt here also is a slightly different shade than the one of the neck. The neck is a little bit more darker in color than what we're actually getting with the head sculpt here. But there's, again, the two different head sculpts. My opinion, and my opinion only, I think this is the superior head sculpt, and exactly the head that I'm going to be displaying when I'm having these guys all out on display. As for the rest of the body, you have the more armored up Atlantean costume that he has primarily through the entire movie, once basically he aligns himself up with the League. Some really nice scaling that's made up the majority of his costume, kind of taking cues from the original Aquaman costume and kind of certainly adding on to that. Primarily the coloring here is this sort of forest green, a lighter shade of forest green. And then they've dry brushed this splendid, did I just say splendid? This splendid metallic gold, which makes rather several appearances, really starting away down at the foot area and making its way all the way up to the very top of the figure. It fills in a lot of the little textured areas of the torso and really the sculpt primarily on the entire body, and again really makes them stand out. Even the lower torso, which I don't think is as successful, gets a little bit of that gold there as well. Here it kind of looks a little bit more just like an area that they've selected to brush over with the gold. Everything else seems to have form and function to it. There's the back of it right there. Again, beautiful looking sculpt. As you could probably imagine too, the figure being a little bit broader, I guess is the best way to describe it. He feels in hand to be a little bit more substantial, a little bit more heavier than the other League members. Not really by a lot, but certainly enough that it does feel like it's got some extra weight to it. Love the gold that they've incorporated into the gloves. I feel though in the movie it's more brown than it is a metallic gold, but they went the route of giving it a gold instead. And again, love that additional gold. It mirrors its way from the wrist all the way down to the boots. Very nice texturing there also in the boot portion of Aquaman. We'll talk about his posability in a second. We'll just kind of put the figure right here, just for a moment. And we'll look at the other accessories that come included with the figure. Now, he does have not as much. I guess if you account for the fact that he does have the interchangeable head, he does have a fair share of accessories, but it seems a little bit less than, say, the likes of Tactical Suit Batman and for the Flash. Two of which, I guess several of which, he does have a pair or several pairs of interchangeable hands. Currently, I've just got him defaulted to the closed fists, but if something is more appealing to you, like for the idea of perhaps going relaxed hands, he definitely has that option as well. And of course, to hold the Trident, which we'll talk about in a second, he does have a pair of grasping hands, and all of which those can easily be replaced by simply just grabbing the forearm area here and just popping the hands off. I do feel like the hands are quite easy to remove, in fact. And take the hand that you want to replace it to and just pop that back into the socket. Yeah, ideally, you could really do that for both. I think what I'll do, though, is just to mix it up. I'm going to go with the flat palm, pop off the hand once again, and replace whatever hand you want to replace on the other hand, this hand right here. And then you've got Aquaman. Now, I will notice, though, or I will bring this to your attention, he's got this one little pointed tip to his sleeve. When you are putting the hand in, let me just show you, like, for example, if you put the hand in like this, you will notice it's going to catch against that section here. You just want to kind of bring it around just enough to clear underneath that, and then you can kind of move the hand. But it will get caught every once in a while. Basically, anytime you are moving the hand, it's going to get caught on that little edge, that little extra burr of plastic, a little point happening right there. Let's put the figure down once again. I keep kind of putting the figure down. And let's have a look at the Tridents. Now, look at this. This is fantastic. I love the look of this. Now, this is alloy. This is an actual metal Poseidon Trident. And it's cast in what I can only describe as probably like a darker coloring. I'm wondering if that's the coloring underneath. And then they've just painted silver over top of it. It definitely does have, obviously, a little bit more of a rigidness to it because it is of a denser alloy material. And then you can simply just take that and put it into his hand, which is definitely going to be the route that I'm going to go. In fact, as I'm doing this, ideas continue to pop into my head. That's usually what happens. And one thing I'm definitely considering doing, in fact, I probably will end up doing this. I'm going to put the Trident in his hand this way. But I think what I might consider doing is when I'm displaying Aquaman, and I may even do this in final looks, I may actually invert the Trident, have it actually look as if he's kind of lunging it down. And then from there, I'll take like the water and just kind of have it on the sides of the figure, kind of as if he is summoning the seas. I think that would be definitely an outstanding look for this guy. For all that, I'm going to take the Trident out of his hand, because let's have a look at the posability on Aquaman here. Now, his head rotates all the way around in some regards, as you could probably imagine. There's some nice highlighting there, by the way. As you could probably imagine, though, the head and hair, the beard and the hair, do get kind of stuck when you are rotating the head. It is theoretically possible you could still pull off turning the head all the way around, but you're going to get a little bit of resistance doing that. We already discussed for the fact that it does have a secondary ball joint. That ball joint sits right in there, and then you've got a ball joint here. So you got 1 and 2, both working towards giving you different posable options for Aquaman's head. Now, looking at his torso, of what we saw before when it came to the Batman and the Flash, and really all of the Beast Kingdom releases, he still has that hinge, that socketed joint. Let me see if I can pull them out to their full extent. See the joint right in there? It's sort of like a cup and ball. The ball, that being the ball joint, sits in the socket area here, and then this cup allows you to hinge the arms outward. Obviously, it's going to look a little disjointed by having the big gap showing there, so you simply just push the arms back in, and it seals that off. But pulling these out, and not popping the hand off in the process, let me just go ahead and put that back on. There we go. Popping these out does afford you some additional posability in the arms, and it also allows you to bring the arms a little bit closer inward, in which you wouldn't be able to do that if the joint wasn't, didn't give you some extra, a little extra motion to move it at. And there's the joint happening right in there. The arms also hinge, but only really by the way it's all kind of assembled here. Aquaman does have a double hinge on the elbow. He does also have a rotation and hinge in the hands. The upper torso does have a considerable amount of joint posability. As well could be said for his lower half. So you got a ball joint here, in there. I don't know if you can see it or not, but there's a ball joint right in there. And then he's got a secondary one right here. The legs are very similar to the arms in that they can hinge downward, leaving a rather noticeably awkward gap, and yet that gap also allows you to do a little bit more crazier things with the legs. Again, when you want to just have them standing straight, you can just push those right in, and you're not going to see that gap happening. Swivel on the top portion of his thigh. He has a double hinge on the knee. And then as for his foot, a good sufficient amount, even though he's got these little kind of sharp triangular pieces that are sticking down, it still somehow affords him the ability to hinge his feet back and forth, forward and back, up and down. And he also has that toe articulation that we sort of talked about at the beginning of looking at the figure. I love this figure, and I find myself repeating the same thing over and over again, which sort of holds true when you look at enough of the same company. If you are a big fan specifically of a company, you might find yourself speaking the same pros, sometimes the same cons granted, but generally the same pros from figure to figure. In the case of what I've already said with the tactical suit Batman, and in also the case of what I said during the review of Flash, can also hold really true here to Aquaman. This is really, in my own opinion, the best outing that we've got as Aquaman in plastic form, and it all came to us from the folks over at Beast Kingdom. Certainly one of the other ways that you can display this figure is what I'm doing here in Final Looks, and probably going to be my preferred way to display him as well, is him throwing the Trident, something he did at the very end of the movie when the League were fighting the many, many hordes of parademons in the efforts to stop Steppenwolf. I really like this look, and I especially like it with the interchangeable head option. As a whole, I love this figure. I don't know if I'm as crazy about the default head, but I'm glad that Beast Kingdom gave us the option with two different heads so that you really could swap it out if you weren't as crazy about the original head sculpt. Screaming or angry Aquaman is really how I picture the character more so I'm glad I have that option that I can swap out the head sculpt. Of the League that we've looked at so far, this might be one of my favorites. It definitely does convey exactly the presence and the stature that Aquaman had in the film, and I think the likeness is quite spot on, at the very least on this head sculpt, maybe not on the other one. If you guys are interested in picking up any one of these are now available in comic book stores, and again, the price point may vary. I could tell you that in Canadian stores, the price point are usually about $60 to $65, depending on where you're finding them. That, of course, may change drastically if you're in US stores or if you're overseas. But either way, I would really highly recommend picking these pieces up for yourself, as I really do think that they are the closest representation of the League members in plastic form. Today, though, we were having a look at the new Beast Kingdom Justice League. This was the Dynamic Action Heroes, and this was product code DAH-007 Aquaman. If you guys haven't had a chance to go back and have a look at some of the other Beast Kingdom reviews that I've done, fear not, don't worry, don't fret. There's a playlist on this channel called Beast Kingdom. You can have a look at everything I've done up to this point, which may also, and does also include, the Batman v Superman reviews that I did many months ago. We're going to have a look at some of the other League members on this channel. I've still got Cyborg to go through. I've also got Steppenwolf, so even though I've kind of just given that away, those are a couple of reviews that you guys can look forward to seeing on this channel as well. And don't worry, there's going to be other content, always new content coming on this channel. Make sure, though, you hit that little subscribe button down below. It will guarantee you that when new videos are coming to this channel, for the most part, you should be able to find them. I know there's always that bell notification, but 100% also, too, you can head over to the main page when you're done this video review. Scroll down the section that says videos, see if there's anything you may have missed along the way, because there's always a good possibility at the amount of content that this guy does, there's always a chance that you may have missed a video along the way. Don't worry, don't fret. Like I said, don't cry, don't be a sad panda. You can find that all in the video section on the main page. Guys, as always, thanks for watching as you always do. Thanks for commenting down below. I always like reading new comments from you guys. And like I said, more videos will be coming your way. So thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.